As you know, Restored Lives' objective really is to come alongside you to help you recover successfully from relationship breakdown. What we want to do now is to introduce you to some other people who can help you recover from all the aspects that you're dealing with. Often people find that there are other professionals or other people who can support you in your journey. And what we want to do is to introduce you to a few that might help you. Why can that be helpful? Well, I love the analogy that one of the ladies on the course gave me a while ago. She said that she had always had in her mind that she was saving money for a rainy day. Now, she was going through a really difficult divorce. She was going through some real financial difficulties and it was a very stressful court case. She realised one day that she hadn't been using a little pot of savings that she had, because that was for a rainy day. She realised that this was her rainy day. This was her biggest crisis in her life. This was something which had completely knocked her sideways. And then she started just a little bit of help, professional advice that really helped her in her journey. She used some of that rainy day money. The point here is that this might be absolutely your rainy day. This is like a crisis in your life. It's a turning point. It's the fork in the road. It's the pivot in your life. This is a massive turning point for you. And the more great help that you have around you to make your recovery successful will enable the rest of your life to be really restored. So what we have here are some introductory videos into various different areas. Now, there are more areas out there. We've just picked a few and have some professionals who are going to come and support and have the ability for you to have one-to-one meetings with them. Just short ones, 5-minute interviews. What I would encourage you to do is to look at the videos and to keep an open mind about whether this area, whether this topic is relevant for you and appropriate and would help you in your recovery journey. We will then enable you to meet up with these professionals, just to have one-to-one meetings, just short 5-7 minute meetings, where you can put your most important question or the key question that you want out of that person. You don't have to meet on an ongoing basis with these professionals. This is more of just an opportunity for you to explore the area and to see whether it's relevant for you, whether it will help you in your journey. We're going to send you the details of how to book up and when those slots will be. But when you book up, I'd encourage you then to go away and think about what you want to say. What's the most important area for you to discuss with them? Maybe rehearse it with a friend so that you're not telling them all the sort of long background of information. You keep it short and sweet on the most important area so that you can hear from that professional what are the various options that you could do, what are the alternatives, what are some of the ideas that will really help you to get through this issue. One of the reasons why I'm excited that you have these opportunities is the feedback that comes after these short meetings. One person in my group a couple of years ago had a 5-minute meeting with one of the professionals and came out and said that it was life-changing. I was amazed. You know, life-changing is a bit of an exaggeration for a 5-minute meeting. What can happen in 5 minutes? But she was adamant. Her attitude to this topic was transformed, and she said herself it was life-changing for her. Now, I don't know whether that's going to be the same for you, but make the most of this opportunity and put it in as another brick in your journey, as another opportunity for you to live a completely restored life moving forwards. Will, it's fantastic to have you. Will, why don't you give a little bit of background about yourself?
Thanks, Eric. Yes, I'm pastoral chaplain at Holy Trinity Brompton, and I've specialised in emotional and mental health, running a charity called the Mind and Soul Foundation. But
what do you think a counsellor can help someone who's going through a relationship breakdown at the moment?
So I think the first thing to say really, Eric, is that counselling is nothing to be afraid of. It's actually really, really helpful. A number of people are nervous about seeing a counsellor because they think, oh, well, does it say something about me in terms of am I weak because I need a counsellor? Or does it mean I've got a bigger problem? And the first thing to say is really that counselling will help majority of people to work through difficult things. And this is about having an alongside guide to help address some of the issues that have gone wrong in relationship and kind of make sense of the past to enable us to walk into the future. Counsellors are not there to lay blame. So they're not sort of an alongside friend in the way that they would say, I back you and I agree with everything that's happened here and it's not your fault. But they are an objective voice to help us to see what has gone wrong. And that might mean that there are things that we want to see change within us. There's certainly things that we'll want to see change within our context and our environment, maybe in future relationships. I think the key thing that nobody wants coming out of a difficult relationship is to carry the baggage forward and potentially carry the baggage into another relationship. And often if we leave things unaddressed or unresolved from the past, then we tend to carry those forward. And the counsellor can help us to not do that.
What do you think people should be thinking about when they're going in to the opportunity of seeing a counsellor?
Well, one of the first things to remember is that you're paying the counsellor. Now, that's really important because actually paying for the space is partly about believing that you're worth hearing. And lots of free counselling is not really very helpful because you often end up apologising for being there. Because actually, if you've paid for the time, you can actually then psychologically take hold of that time and use it for your benefit, which is what counselling should happen, with the context of. Most counselling sessions are normally around 50 minutes. And again, the time frame is really important because it helps to set a quality space within which you're going to work. It also helps to limit the work so you come back next time when you've worked through some of the material from the counselling session itself. There are loads of different options for counselling. And I think the key thing is finding the thing that's right for you. But people will be asking, well, what is right for me? And I would say that most people coming out of a relationship are looking for a sort of person-centred counselling approach. And that's quite a general counselling approach. That's looking at what's happened in their lives, how have they got to where they are now, what can they unpick from their past, and how can they, if you like, find greater freedom to move into the future. Some people coming out of a relationship will need a different sort of work to that. I'm particularly thinking about people who've been in a traumatic relationship. So that might be a relationship which has involved abuse of some kind, or maybe they've been bereaved in that relationship and they found themselves single, or maybe they've lost a child and that's been a propagating factor in their separation or divorce. And so some people will need specific trauma-based work to help them recover from a relationship breakdown. Some people may have developed an emotional health challenge as a result of the relationship or alongside the relationship breaking down itself. And first advice is really, if you feel any of the sort of psychological mental health symptoms, to see your GP straight away and get direct advice from them. And they'll often send you into a sort of counselling, which is really a psychological support, which can help your mental health. But the main and the plain for people is a sort of person-centred or relationship counselling base. And if people look for the BACP registration, that's the British Association for Counselling Psychologists, that's a very good quality registration. But people need to be discerning. Remember that counselling is a marketplace, and it's okay to ask questions in advance. And it's also okay to say, actually, I'm really sorry, but I don't think you're the right person for me, and then actually to pull out. So once you've done a session, maybe 2 sessions, it's absolutely fine to then say, I don't really feel like this is the right sort of work for me, and then to pull away. You're not obligated to stay with the counsellor that you've chosen from the first port of call. But I would say take advice. Personal recommendations are a good thing. If you know people who've had a successful journey with someone, make sure you ask questions about accreditation and training. Make sure you explore costs in advance, because counselling can be quite expensive. If someone's offering free counselling, be very nervous about that. And if someone's very unbounded in counselling and start extending the session length, or maybe talking a lot about themselves and their own experiences, then also be slightly nervous about that too. Look for professional competence in the same way you'd look for professional competence from a doctor. the process of talking about your experiences to an empathetic and compassionate person is a really powerful and healing experience in and of itself.
What would you suggest the best thing for them in trying to get the most out of that 5 to 7 minutes?
So they've just got a short amount of time, so it's important not to overspeak because it's easy to sort of suddenly try and fill the space and then find that your time has gone. Now, I'd encourage people to maybe think about one incident or one aspect of their experience that they want to bring to that 5 to 7 minute consultation. And I would try and choose something that's relatively easy for the counsellor to understand. So they might, if you like, give a vignette of an argument or something that happened in the separation process that they found very painful. And what they should be doing is trying to express what happened and then looking to the counsellor to see the counsellor's perspective on it, and also to see the impact of empathy on them through being heard effectively.
So, Will, just to conclude, how would someone know that this has worked for them?
Well, the key thing, Erik, I think, is that the counselling journey is a growth journey. And it's very rarely about, I'm fixed. But where relationship counselling is concerned, what we're not able to necessarily do is say, well, I'm fixed because I've done counselling. And it's not about the therapist doing something to the client. It's a journey together to explore what's happened. And I would encourage people to think about it as a growth journey. Actually, I've grown through my counselling, and it's largely, in my experience, about finding peace, particularly if you've experienced really a difficult divorce or separation. Then I believe that the counselling journey can bring a sense of peace and a sense of resolution to the circumstances. So go in with an open mind, but also see it as a gift. Counselling is not meant to be a sort of a burden that you have to struggle through. It's actually a gift if you can access it. Even though you're paying for it, it could be one of the best things that you purchase in your life. It's certainly one that really transforms the inner self rather than buying a new car, which only lasts for a short time. If you're transformed in your inner life, that's a real help and a real gift.
Awesome. Will, thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Helen Adam. I used to work as a family solicitor and now practice as a family mediator, working with couples to help them make arrangements on all the legal issues that arise when a relationship breaks down. That time of relationship breakdown is such a vulnerable time for many people. Amidst the emotional hurly-burly, there are a whole load of uncertainties, of fears, and in many cases a broken trust. And getting the legal issues resolved is a really important building block on that journey of recovery. And inevitably people feel very anxious and afraid. And so my aim now is just to give you a very brief snapshot of what those legal issues are and some guidance of how to approach them. So there are three main legal issues that arise when a relationship breaks down. If the couple were married, the first question is, are they going to get a divorce, or is this an ongoing separation? We have a very archaic law in this country, I'm afraid, which pits parents or couples against each other with a language of fault and blame. Thankfully, there's new law due to come in. But for now, there are ways of managing this. I think if it's decided that there is to be a divorce, then the best thing to do is together, with legal support or with the help of a mediator, look at which fact best applies to your situation, and then go through it in the least acrimonious way possible. There is nothing legally to be gained by mudslinging. It just causes a lot of hurt and upset. The second area, critical area, is question of any children's arrangements. What arrangements do we need to agree? What discussions do we need to have as parents who are transitioning from being a couple living together in one family to being two independent people with separate lives, and who will potentially have new partners and new families, but who commit to managing a strong parenting relationship going forwards. So the law in this country gives parents parental responsibility. The emphasis is all about responsibility rather than rights. And the courts expect parents to try and work out the best arrangements for their child. There is no need for any formal court orders. In fact, the court much prefers there to be no involvement at all by the court. They don't want to become the third parent. They want to leave parenting decisions to the parents. Now, there are some families where there are issues of domestic abuse or child protection concerns, or where, for example, a child might be at risk of being taken overseas without the other parent's consent. And in those cases, the law may be needed. An application to the court may be required. And that's what the court is there for. But the majority of families are really dealing with parenting issues rather than legal issues. Now, that's not to say that parents will always agree. In fact, if parents live together happily, they still won't agree on parenting issues all the time. It's no different when they separate. There are some big issues to work out. Where is the child going to be spending time with each parent? How's that all going to work out? If you can't agree, get help. There are local mediators that can help. By all means, go and see a local solicitor, although, as I say, these issues tend to be parenting issues rather than legal issues. And there are increasing numbers of parenting programs and support locally, which can be accessed through the family hubs or CABs. So the third area, and is the one that often causes problems, is how to resolve the finances. And by finances, I mean housing, money, savings, investments, debts, pensions, income, expenses, the whole family pot. How is that going to be sorted to meet the family needs? We do not have a law in this country which prescribes a 50-50 split down the middle, far from it. Instead, the law is based around two main principles. First, what is there? What is the financial disclosure? What is there in this couple relationship, in the finances? Secondly, what are the needs? Where are they going to live? How is that going to be afforded? How are they going to meet their bills? And it's a question of marrying up what there is with what the needs are. Now, again, a problem-solving approach together is the best way forward. We no longer have a law which immediately pits parents against each other into battle zones and endless wars. It's no longer the context of a boxing ring automatically. It can be if you get the wrong legal support around you, but there are loads and loads of really good solicitors now who are trained in supporting couples to resolve issues together. There are also local mediators who may be legally qualified as well, trained to support you to work out all these issues. So get legal advice and get legal support, but make sure it supports you to work things out and to arrive at the best settlement for the family. It's so important, because although your children may not know anything about the finances, they will suffer the consequences if the relationship is destroyed in the process of the financial negotiations. So getting a fair and sensible resolution of the finances will bear dividends not just for the two of you and your financial security, but for the whole family over the rest of childhood and the decades which follow. So it has to be a priority. We'll provide links to the key websites following this, the key websites for a solicitor who will be supportive and helpful, and for finding a local accredited mediator. I hope that's helpful.
Hi, I'm Jen Loaker and I'm a relationship coach. I work predominantly with individuals who face separation and divorce. Having experienced divorce personally, I understand just how painful and challenging divorce can be. But I can also say with great conviction that there most definitely is life after divorce. And I can say that not just because of my own experience, but because of my experience in supporting others over the years. People often say that time is a great healer, and to a certain extent that's true. but I believe it's what we do with that time that really makes the difference. As a coach, I support individuals to move beyond their separation and divorce and emerge with greater resilience and self-confidence. Sometimes people ask me, what's the difference between coaching and counselling? And perhaps the easiest way to explain this is to say that counselling tends to be problem-focused, whereas coaching is goal-focused. So, for example, if you're finding it difficult to cope, if you're feeling overwhelmed with your everyday, then working with a counsellor can help you to understand these issues and find ways to cope and manage these in your day-to-day. Coaching, on the other hand, will help you to understand what it is that you want in life. A coach will help you to set goals and to achieve those goals. So coaching is very much about taking positive action. It's goal-focused. As you will be aware, there are many different stages to separation and divorce, and as a coach I'm able to support individuals at any of those different stages. But if I had to summarise my work with clients under two broad headings, it would be communication and confidence. Communication and confidence. Communication is not easy at the best of times, but when you go through a separation and divorce, it can be even more challenging. And of course, one of the most common ways that this shows up is in the relationship with your ex-partner. And one of the most common challenges is navigating the co-parenting relationship. And that's an area where coaching can be really helpful. But you know, separation and divorce also impacts the other relationships in our lives, perhaps relationships with family or friends or relationships in the workplace. Confidence can also be impacted when you go through a separation or divorce, and that might be on a personal level. For example, your sense of self-esteem, your sense of identity can be impacted, and coaching can actually really help you to rebuild that sense of value and self-esteem. It may be, for example, confidence around making decisions. There are many decisions that we need to make when we go through a separation or divorce, and one of the areas where I support clients is in helping them to supporting them through the legal process. I'm not a lawyer or a solicitor, and I don't provide legal advice. But through the coaching, clients have found it so helpful to have that space to explore how the legal process is actually impacting them, and to be able to step back from it and make decisions that are in line with their values rather than reacting out of their emotions. It may be, for example, that you want to explore what the future looks like. You know, divorce marks the end of your relationship, but it also marks a new beginning in your life. And working with a coach can help you to begin to imagine what that future might look like, to begin to be intentional about rebuilding your life and reshaping that future. So as you can see, there are many different areas where coaching can be helpful through your separation or divorce. I wish you all the very best. Take care. Bye-bye.
Ian, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you say a little bit about yourself?
My name's Ian Soars, a Chief Executive of Vegans, a charity that has always worked with vulnerable kids and families in different scenarios. We do mainly two different things. We provide qualified therapy to traumatized children, and we also do parenting interventions. So we work with parents for whatever reason that's needing a bit of support. A lot of our parenting is really informed by the clinical practice we do with counselling.
We've obviously got a lot of people who are going through relationship breakdown with kids. How can you help them?
I think for everyone going through that situation, that is painful for everyone. And even as an adult, as you go through your own trauma and stuff that's going on with you, you know, you kind of look at your children and saying, well, what impact is this having on them? And for some, that will be not very much, and for others, it will be a great deal. And for all of us as parents, we're saying, well, how do I cocoon my kids? How do I protect my kids? How do I care for my kids? And so really what we would, I'll try and do in a few minutes is the things that are concerns that are really worrying parents is to try and get to the root of those. And maybe, and I hate the language, but, give quick fix or quick strategies that can maybe address the particular situations that people are finding.
What's your attitude? Is it helping the parents, helping the kids, or is it a mixture of both?
I think for all of us, including myself, I've got 3 teenage daughters. When you're close to it, it's very difficult to see the woods for the trees in terms of parenting. Most of us figure that we're doing an okay job, but we know that we're never good enough. And the truth is, we're never going to be good enough. But sometimes it can help just to have a pair of outside eyes, look at the situation and say, look, you're doing great here, you're doing great here, but maybe, a bit more of this, and your kids should flourish. Nothing, there's no silver bullet. There's nothing I can do that will make everything better tomorrow. There's no magic command I can give to make children obedient, good, nice, respectful. But what we can do, or what I can do, is provide perhaps some insights and strategies that over a little bit of time should be able to bear fruit and give you what you need to kind of to flourish, us to flourish as parents as much as our kids.
What would you suggest they think about going into that? And it's only 5 to 7 minutes. What would you suggest they think about going into that meeting?
So the first thing is to articulate the issue that's facing you. So when I do these sessions, often a lot of the time is taken up with people telling me what the issue is, and it doesn't give me much time to speak into it, to just crystallize what it is that is concerning you. The second thing is often speaking from the outside, it's not that we're magicians. We don't necessarily know everything that's going on, and we can get some stuff wrong. But have your heart open. That maybe something might be difficult that we're going to say. We don't have long to sugarcoat it, but we'll try and address the issues as fast as we can, as openly as we can, as directly as we can, and give you something that's to take away. So just to open your heart to that. And then finally, I think when I'm talking to parents, often parents are quite orientated about themselves. I am finding this is what's not right for me. And I do get that. But the best thing, this will work best if we're addressing how your children are looking at the world, how they are feeling. And then I can hopefully equip you to address that. Because if we get that bit right, it will hopefully make your life a lot easier.
What are the options available to people after this one-to-one meeting? What are the things that you found in the past?
So the reality is, with parenting, pretty much every parenting book, there's about 3,000 of them on Amazon. Pretty much every parenting course will say the same things. And it's worth picking up any of them, perhaps the shortest ones, because they'll summarize it better. But if you're really looking for more support, there are a few different places you can go. Obviously, we provide our own. From our perspective, we have a website called Dad Info. Although it's aimed at dads, it's got almost a 50-50 gender split. My charity is actually called Vegans. We have a massive amount of resources on our website, vegans.org.uk. And we also have, in these strange times that we live in, an animated series called Parenting in the Community, Parenting in a Pandemic. And that sort of comes into your inbox every few days or so with top tips, and it's just a few minutes long, and it's not me droning on. It's a kind of a very fact-filled, insight-filled animation that you can just look at for a few minutes and go, okay, I can apply that for the next few days. And so there's a lot of resource out there, much of it ours, and we're delighted to be able to provide all of that free of charge.
If there's one thing that you would leave behind with someone in a difficult situation, parenting and struggling, what would you say to them?
Parenting is a long game, and we all make mistakes. And the guilt that we carry, you might be carrying right now, about you've not done this, you did that, you shouted, you lost it, you've blown this situation, forget it all. Kids look at the heart. And although day to day this might be really difficult, even some of you, your children may not even be speaking to you, but actually parenting is a long game, and they will reflect back on this time. So have hope. We can work with you to make things practically easier and immediate, but actually when your child looks back, when you look back on this time as a parent, I promise you it will not be as dark as you fear it might be. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Ian, you're a star. It's great working with you. Thank you so much for helping us.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Hello, I'm Helen Newbury, and tonight I'm going to introduce you to Ruth. So Ruth came on the course in 2016. So can you tell us a bit about your background? What happened to you?
Yes, so I got married in 2009, which was as I was finishing university. I'd been with my then husband for about 6.5 years at that point. So I thought I'd got it sort of all sorted. We got married and were married for 3 years. And then on holiday in 2012, I found out that he had been cheating on me with another woman. And we came back from holiday. We had various attempts at reconciling. We lived together for a bit, lived separately. And eventually in 2014, he decided that he didn't want to make any more efforts to be part of our marriage, and decided that we would get divorced. So that came through in 2015.
Mm. At that point, what was the hardest thing for you?
I think there were a couple of things. I felt like somehow I hadn't been enough. And that, I think, in some facets of my life, I find that anyway. It took a counsellor asking me, well, what does enough look like? For me to think, well, actually, that's a really good question. I don't know that I've ever quantified enough. So, but that emotion was prevalent for a very, very long time. Whether I could have done more, whether I could have been a better wife, whether I should have come home from work earlier. And that is the loneliness, because I grew up in a big family. I'd got married straight out of university. I'd never lived by myself, and I'd never been an adult on my own. We got together when I was 16. So it was something that I had no idea about. So having to then take on everything by myself was daunting and really, really hard.
So what helped with that? What helped you?
For me, community really helped. So my family my parents had just moved away, which was really unhelpful. But in another way, I guess, positive, because some families from my church really took me under their wing and welcomed me in to be part of their family. So I actually went and lived with some of them for a bit. I didn't know them well before this happened. They were part of my small group at church, but we weren't particularly close. They just offered me a key to their house and said, if you ever need to come round, come round. If we wake up and find you on the sofa, we find you on the sofa. So I used to go around there regularly for tea, because I didn't want to eat. I don't like cooking the best of times, and eating was just another thing to have to do. So I used to go around there all the time for tea, and they're still some of my best friends now. So finding that community, those people who would just sort of pick you up and keep you going with them, even when you just didn't want to do it, that was essential. And I, as I mentioned, got some counselling, because I knew that in that period of time between 2012 and 2014, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to end, but I knew that I wanted to come out of it better somehow. I didn't want to be bitter. I didn't want to come out as sort of a broken mess, which is what I felt at the beginning. I wanted to come out of it whole, be that by myself or with him.
So that was then, and I know now, I know because I know your life's rebuilt. But what happened in between? How did you rebuild that?
I think for me, it was finding things out about myself, because I'd not been that adult on my own. I needed to spend time working out what I liked, what I enjoyed, and sort of redefining who I was. So I wrote a list of 100 things that I wanted to do during 2014, which turns out was a good thing to have done. So I don't know, I wanted to go to like a football match or a comedy show, at a gig. I wanted to wear more nail varnish, and that sort of thing. Anything. It didn't have to be big. It didn't have to cost anything. And most of it I could do by myself. So that really helped. And I rediscovered a love of writing. So I did a lot more of that. I found out what music I liked. There was a lot of things that I think helped me to become my own person again. And I think that was really important, because it meant I could spend time in my own company again, and that I liked who I was.
And how do you feel now?
I mean, it feels like a lifetime ago. It feels like it happened to a different person. I was chatting to fairly recent friend. I've now got a little girl. So I was chatting to a friend who's got a little boy, and her son is born the day before my old wedding anniversary. And so I said, the reason I could remember it was because it's my wedding anniversary. She said, oh, congratulations. That was like, no. And that's because I'm actually divorced. And it just doesn't feature. It doesn't, if people know me now, they don't know that I'm divorced. If it gets brought up, it's not something that I feel sad about or I'm bothered about. I can joke about it. And if you'd asked me that in 2012, even in 2014, I would not have said I would ever be joking about this. It was not funny. And it's not funny at the time. It's not a funny thing to have happen, but it doesn't stay with you in that same level of pain. It does change and diminish, and it becomes part of your past. Of course it does, and it is part of what makes you who you are, but it doesn't define you in the same way that it can, and it does, I think, while you're going through it.
Mm-hmm. So if you had one thing that you could say now to anybody who's going through separation and divorce, what would that be?
Really good question. I think for me, one of the things I wanted to know was you're not on your own. You'll know from doing this course there are other people who are in the same situation or similar situations who are going through things at the same time as you. And although it might feel like you're on your own because that person that you love has left you, or because you've left a relationship, you're not by yourself. There are people who understand and who can support you and who you can chat to and who've got your back. And I think that's one of the brilliant things about Restored Lives, is that you've got this group around you who get it. And that for me was so powerful, knowing that other people really understood exactly what I meant when I said things. So you're not on your own. We're here.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.